Welcome back. You're tuning in to Financial Fitness Northwest live on KKNW. We are here to help you navigate the mortgage and real estate market with expert advice from knowledgeable and trustworthy industry professionals. And today we are here with Karen Eschbach from Coldwell, Bain. Karen grew up in the Puget Sound area and loves the Pacific Northwest. Prior to starting in real estate in 2006, she worked 11 years in high-tech marketing and is a graduate of WSU. Karen enjoys working with clients on both the listing and buying side of the process. She provides outstanding service to all of her clients and is available to them 24/7. She believes it is her duty to educate them in every step of the process and also be a firm negotiator with their best interests in mind. Welcome, Karen.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So good to have you here. So we're going to talk about rent back. So why don't we just start off with explaining, what is a rent back?
Okay. Well, first of all, also, I want to say the reason why we do this is because of this market.
Yeah.
It just gives the seller a benefit. And the benefit is a rent back is a period of time after closing when the new buyer rents the house back from the seller after the home is closed.
Right. So how does it, benefit the seller to do a rent back?
Well, it's a tremendous benefit to the seller since in our current market, there isn't a large inventory of homes. So it allows the seller extra time to stay in their home while they look for another home. And then also, since the home will be sold, closed, then when the rent back starts, the seller then has that money from their current home to purchase their next home. So they don't have to do a contingency on the close of their current house, which is huge in this multiple offer situation market that we have right now.
So it sounds perfect. So why aren't more people doing rent backs then?
Well, I think some people are afraid that they're not going to get as much money or they won't get multiple offers because maybe the buyers are afraid or the buyers won't do that or aren't going to be happy with having to delay their possession of the house or moving into the house. So, yeah.
Well, I think, it's a seller's market, right? So, at the end of the day, it's kind of a win-win because they are getting the proceeds from their home. They have time to find another place. They don't have to qualify with both payments.
Right.
So I feel like people should be doing this a lot more.
Right. And I would say about 10%, in the Northwest multiple in this area here do a rent back.
Okay.
So, yeah. But I think it's because people are afraid. They're afraid. The sellers are afraid, like I said, that they won't make, maybe not even get as much money because not as many, they'll turn off buyers. But really, I just had one last week up in the Mill Creek area where we asked for a rent back up front. And we asked for 2 months, and we were able to get 16 offers. And of the 16 offers, 13 of those offered a rent back to the seller.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here like putting on my little buyer's hat, and I'm thinking, okay, there's not a lot of inventory out there. You find this house that you really want. If you have to wait 60 days,
big deal.
Who cares? You're still winning a property, which isn't necessarily that easy right now. So it seems like there would probably be not that many buyers that would balk at that.
Right. And I think a lot of the buyers are renting right now. So it also gives them that advantage of giving enough notice to their landlord. So they don't have to compete. A lot of times you'll see there's people are nervous when they're financing a house that they're going up against cash buyers that can close in 2 weeks or, so there are people that they don't want to close that quickly. There are sellers that need that extra time. So they don't need to have a cash buyer. So, like I said, they can, the renter can give their notice and all that. So it's a benefit to them too.
This is really good for the move up buyer because I feel like that is, kind of a stagnant market right now where there's a lot of buyers that would move up, but they're afraid because number one, they don't qualify for 2 mortgages.
Right.
And contingent offer isn't really very, aggressive or accepted in this market. Right.
No.
And so they're just doing nothing. They're just waiting. They're just sitting there on these homes, but whereas maybe they would go buy something. I think they just don't know this is even an option.
Right. And it is an option for several loan types. So conventional, VA, and FHA for 60 days. That's the max that you can do.
Right.
So anyway, it's just something that make sure you talk with your lender about when you go through this whole process and you're going to submit the offer, confirm with your lender up front that they agree that 60 days would be it. So.
Yeah. But I mean, that is the underwriting guidelines for a rent back. So I just think that a lot of not only lenders, it's not front of mind, but also I haven't worked with any other agents that are positioning buyer. I mean, you literally could probably go knock on doors in a neighborhood and get listings because by
Educate
presenting
people.
this.
Educate people on this process.
Yeah.
Right?
And then in the last year, 4 of my listings, I had this done. I put on for this request of seller rentbacks. And like I said, they were concerned at first that this was going to happen. And of those, like I said, this one I had last week was the 16 offers. And then I also had 2 other houses last summer or within the last year, I'm sorry, that were 17 offers on those.
Wow.
And then one that had 3 offers, and those were all rent back houses. So people are willing to do this.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely seeing it more now too.
Yeah.
It probably depends a bit on location too, right? Because if you're in Kirkland, Redmond, Issaquah, Seattle, then you're in a very desirable area, and people are going to do what they have to do to get the house.
That's true. And so of the ones I mentioned, 3 were in Kirkland, but 1 was in Mill Creek.
Okay.
So, and the Mill Creek was last week. That was 16 offers. So with 13 people offering those rent backs.
Wow.
And then also the rent back itself, as a buyer, you can offer it in different ways where you don't have to do the full amount that they want. You could do a month or whatever. But then you can also negotiate on the rent too. So you can offer them free rent, or you can offer them to cover the mortgage, what your mortgage will be too. So, but what we found is a lot of people offered free rent.
Oh, really?
To the sellers because they want that house. So.
Right. Rather than upping the price of the home and financing more, they're getting, they're being competitive and offering a free rent back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. I haven't heard of free. So I guess,
free sounds good.
Because I have one that was, that I'm working on right now, and they were going to pay the seller was going to pay their current mortgage as the rent.
Right.
So, and I think the buyer was thinking, well, that's less than what our house payment is going to be. So I don't know, how do you work that out? It's just a negotiation between the parties.
It is. It's negotiation. So you're negotiating. And so when your agent submits the offer, you put in a rental agreement, and that's where you you would put what the rent is in that rental agreement. But what I like to do, both on the buying and selling side, when I'm the agent, either as the buyer's agent or the listing, you need to communicate with that listing agent. So you need to know up front. You don't just submit an offer without talking to that listing agent. So you need to talk to them and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or my buyers are thinking for the rent. They want to be able to cover their mortgage. Do you think the seller would go for that? So just if you we are very communicative between each other, both parties.
Right.
The agents are. So you just need to know up front, would they be willing to accept it? And sometimes if it's a multiple offer situation, you might have to just give them the free rent, just if you really want that house.
Right.
So is the rent back initiated more from the buyer's side, or is it from the seller's side?
From the seller. It's the seller, because it's typically what the seller needs, to move. Right.
Yeah.
So, some people, it's because they're waiting for their house to be built if they're doing new construction.
Sure.
Or they're, or they want to find another house, and so they need to get that cash out of that current house. So it's always done through the seller.
Wow. So when you're listing the house and going in that you need a rent back, is that told up front in the listing, or is it just once the offers come in, then you let them know here's what the sellers need to accept these offers, or how do you?
I disclose it in the agent remarks, which are on the MLS, so the other agents will see that seller needs a rent back.
Okay.
And so then they'll always call and say, what type of terms are they looking for? And so when we get to that point where we're going to review offers, then that, the days coming up to that is when I'll get all the calls saying, okay, what closing date do they want? We need a 60-day rent back. This is when we'd like the possession date to be. So we work this all out ahead of time. So,
okay.
But yeah, I think you should be upfront with the buyers, so they all know that this is what the seller would prefer.
Right. And so in your experience of the homes that you've done so far with rentbacks, have they sold just as quickly as homes without?
They have, yes.
Yeah.
They have.
Like on the market for a week?
Yeah, we just do I typically list a house on a Thursday, and then we review offers like that following Wednesday or something like that. And and then they sell just as quickly as the other houses do.
Yeah, because I would think that from a seller's standpoint, you might feel like when you're listing your house, you want to put your best foot forward, right? And to get top dollar. And so when you have the agent remarks in there, people are automatically know that you need to rent back before they even look at your house. But you're saying it doesn't even affect, traffic or the offers you're receiving. You still got, tons of offers.
Yeah, totally. 16 offers on a house that wants a 2-month rent back,
What was the price point of that house?
It was listed for $545.
Okay.
That's a pretty good price point for East Side.
It was Mill Creek, right?
Mill Creek.
Oh,
right.
Mill Creek. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a pretty desirable price range. That's probably somebody that was going to buy on the East Side. that couldn't find anything and moved to Mill Creek.
and that's what we're seeing. You know, that's what when we priced the house at $545, we were like, okay, so we'll see how many people come through, and we're not sure, and just kind of how it is. You're always wondering when
testing
you price
the market, right?
Yeah. So let's push it and see. And then you get, the first day we had 19 showings, and then what I found out from a lot of the agents when they were calling, with their offers, they said, we've looked in Kirkland, we've looked in Redmond, they can't afford it anymore. So now they're moving up to Mill Creek. So Mill Creek is turning into they're just flying off the shelf there too.
Yeah,
the houses are.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So, what about, did those houses that had the rent back, I'm curious, did they go over ask as well? They did.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they still did.
Mm-hmm. So the Mill Creek house just went 20% over the asking price.
Wow.
Over that. Actually,
and it
over
appraised?
20%.
Has it appraised yet? Or
we had the appraisal yesterday, and it was through Caliber, was the lender.
Well, then I'm sure it was
it's
absolutely
great.
fine.
Yeah. No worries there then.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. So you do a rent back, as a seller. You get your cash back from, right? So you get the cash, then you can go, you have 30 days to still go find a house. You've got your down payment.
Or 60, right?
Or 60 days,
30
right.
to 60, yeah, whatever you
It's
want to
30
do.
to close, and then an additional, so it's
60.
90 days, really, right?
Yeah.
And then you have that cash to put down on your place. You're not making a contingent offer. You can maximize, what you qualify for because you have a larger down payment with your equity.
Right.
Right. And you're still getting above ask, and in some cases also free mortgage for 2
So
months.
you're saving even more money. It's great. Yeah.
do you think that's
Wow.
typical? I guess that's just an extra to set that buyer apart from the next guy.
Yeah.
Huh?
And like I said, in the one that we just had, we didn't get all free rent, but we had several that did have free rent in there. So it wasn't, some, like I said, some wanted their mortgage covered, some wanted just a flat fee. So, yeah.
Which actually could, not be too big of a hindrance for the buyer, because when you do close your loan, you're going to skip that first month. Your payment's not going to be due till the next month. So
it's really 1 month.
It's really just 1 month that you might have
A payment.
a double expense of some sort.
But in the end, it's probably worth it because you get that house.
You get
right.
the house, right? Yes, that's what I tell people a lot these days
Right.
when they want to talk about rate or whatever. It's like, none of that matters if you don't win the bid. So really, you need to be in a position to win the bid and then work on all the other details.
Wow. That's really, really, I'm feeling like you should come look at my house because I think I might need to. This is like some really fantastic news. So what other tips? I know you work with buyers and sellers, and you have a lot of experience. What other tips can you share with us?
So for the buyers, make sure that your agent includes that correct rental agreement. And so they will know. And if not, the listing agent will tell them which rental agreement to include, which is a post-possession closing rental agreement. And then also as a buyer, make sure that you let your lender know that you're doing this, and that your insurance company as well, because you're not going to occupy that home right away. So they need to all be aware of that. So
right, because your insurance is going to start once you occupy the property.
Right. So, and then you have to, as the seller, has to make sure then they get renter's insurance once their homeowners is done, right? So then they're a renter. So, so they have to make sure they have rental insurance on the property as
What
well.
about utilities and stuff like that? Because don't those switch over once the ownership?
So how it works with the MLS typically is we have escrow do that, but you can waive that utility and that utility switch and we usually do that with a rent back. So the escrow will come back later and say, hey, I see you have a rent back. Do you want to waive this instead? Otherwise, they would withhold funds to pay off all those utilities. It's something that after you agree on the whole thing and you're pending, that's when the buyer and seller talk about, like, how do you want to handle this? And so typically the seller will just continue to pay the utilities, and then they'll shut it off once it's that possession date for the next for the buyer.
Good question, Mom. I didn't even think about that. Wow.
Well, I just know that from being a landlord before.
Oh, yeah.
Utilities usually stay
right with the ownership.
So
you probably have to do a lot of educating to the other realtors, right? Because do they know about this too?
They do a lot. There are several that know and they understand. But I do have to tell them when we come down to the point where they're going to write the offer. I always say, make sure you include the 65B. That's the agreement. So I make sure you include that one because that's the correct rental agreement for post possession closing. So, but yeah, typically people know.
They do.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
And they should be telling their peeps about this. Get more listings.
Yeah.
Well, so the other thing that I was thinking about was. Shoot, I just forgot what it was. Do you have something, Mom?
Well, So with regard to...
Oh, I remembered it.
Oh, go ahead then. Ask your question. Go ahead. Let me just let you ask your question. Go ahead.
No, okay.
Go.
No, it wasn't really a question, but it was just on the whole, 60 days to possession. So on a primary residence, that's true for financing because you sign it at closing that you're going to possess the property within 60 days. And so that's what that is. But you can do longer rent backs if you're not purchasing it as a primary residence. So, I have somebody right now where he was working with another lender, but he saw the light and he's working with me, and he was buying a property and a duplex, and he was gonna his lease wasn't up till June, so he was doing this whole 4-month rent back, and he had to put 20% down because now it's an investment property and all this. And I said, well, what if you just closed a month later, extended your closing out a little bit longer, so it's more like a 45 or 60-day close, and then had a 60-day rent back. You're almost there. So he could buy it as a primary residence. So just, it's just something that you can do a rent back situation longer, but it wouldn't be a primary residence. So just something to note. That's what I thought of.
Good to know. That's good information.
So I just came across
and that's another thing too, like with like the Mill Creek house that I have. So the couple is moving out of state and they're building a house, and they wanted their boys to finish the school year. So that was why people were like, well, so we can close in 21 days, and we said no, we want 45 days because of the same that. We want the 60-day rent back. We want them to be able to finish the school year so we can figure this whole thing out. So we mapped out the dates of what the proper, the right close date would be plus 60 days, and then that's the possession to date.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's perfect because that is probably, why we see so many houses come on the market in spring and summer is because of the school year.
Right.
So knowing that, well, you do have options if you right now when the market's really low, there's no other homes listed. I mean, you could list your home and do a rent back and your kids can finish out the school year.
Right. And that's huge.
That is huge.
And you're right. And then people are always nervous about listing in March because, I'm not going to have this time for my kids to finish. But
right.
Yeah, you can do it.
I think that's probably one of the biggest factors in people not listing right now is school, right?
Because well, real estate typically, it always kind of picks up. People don't want to uproot in the school year, so summertime, and then they want to get settled before school starts again, right? So their kids can be settled where they need to be.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's really good. So what other information as far as like listing, just besides a rent back, what are some good tips for a seller who's listing their house to get top dollar?
Well, number one is to make sure your house is perfect. Even in this market, the houses that are in just perfect condition sell so much over the asking price, and make it current. So like the one I keep talking about, this Mill Creek house, it was built in 2005. They had everything done. Like they had put new hardwood floors. They put a new kitchen in, even though it was built in 2005. But in the last year, they put in like what the current style of a kitchen is.
Right.
And so, and it had a huge island, and everyone just fell in love with that. And then also, like just little things like their laundry room, they put a barn door, sliding barn door.
That's so current.
So popular.
Yeah. So they did everything right that what it is now that everybody wants in a house, they did. And so that's why I think it also helped them too. Is so just make your house perfect because you only have this short period of time too in this market. Really, you're going to sell your house. If it's priced well and it looks good, you will sell it in a week. So that's it. You've got to make sure that you get as much as you can for this house and it's perfect.
Right, because if it's on the market more than like a week, people think there's something wrong with it.
And that actually segues into another thing about the buyers that I was going to say about now buying in this market. What can you do if it's so hard to buy in the market just because of this competition? But so what I'm talking with other buyers that I'm working with is to maybe look outside of the area that you're really set on this certain area, Kirkland and Redmond, and you think, okay, that's it, and then you try for a month or two trying to putting in offers, you're not getting them. Well, then you need to look outside of the area and look up in Snoqualmie Ridge, look up in Mill Creek, look somewhere else, Kenmore, there in Bothell. There's other areas here. They're just as that you can get close to where you work if you work in Seattle or Bellevue or wherever. The other thing I was going to say is look at another strategy I do, and I'm giving up my secrets here, but.
Is what I appreciate it.
Okay, well, is look at houses, set up a search because you can search through any of the through Coldwell Bank or Bain or whatever website you use, search for houses that have been on the market for at least 10 days. Those are the houses that are most likely overpriced.
It's kind of funny to think that 10 days on the market is, wow, that's been sitting, right? But,
it has. So then you have a chance of going after that house because people, it's if it hasn't sold in 10 days, 14 days,
right.
It's most likely it would, you could probably get it for the list price or maybe a little less than the list price, which is unheard of in this market. So, but anyway, so that's something I do we're working with buyers on doing it that way. Let's just look at those houses that have been sitting there and see if we can, if 30 days, let's make a low offer and see if we can get it. So,
wow.
I just had sorry, go ahead. No, I just had someone, actually 2 deals. It's the craziest thing. They both bought houses that had been on the market for a little while. They under ask because they had been on for, 30 days. And they appraised like $20,000 over, the purchase price. So not only did they not have to go up against all these other offers, they won the house, they paid under asking, and they have instant equity. So you can really win if you go after the homes that have been on the market just a little bit longer, because they're probably great houses. They're just not completely updated. Right. Yeah. They're just not perfect. Yeah. 50 years to look past that stuff.
Right. Yeah. So just knowing that you can put in, you can change so much in a house and you can make it yours. And if you can get it under the list price and, if it's something that's been on the market for a while, you can get a great house here.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen. That's some really, really great tips. We are going to go to commercial now. Thank you for tuning in to Financial Fitness Northwest. When we come back, we will be talking to Christy Meeker with AAA Insurance. To find out about any topics discussed on today's show, you can find us online at www.financialfitnessnorthwest.com.